Welcome to Eat Well, Travel Better, the Business of Food Travel podcast with Eric, Wolf, and Ashi Vale, where we help you become a better industry professional by gaining inspiration from some of the world's most successful people in the food and beverage tourism industry. With each episode, we meet these leaders and examine their secrets of success. We reveal the obstacles and challenges they have faced, along with their solutions and triumphs, and give you ideas and inspirations for many of the same business issues that you may be facing as well. And now for today's episode. Welcome. I'm Eric Wolf, and I'll be your host today for episode 32 of Eat Well, Travel Better, the Business of Food Travel podcast. And joining me today is co-host Ashi Vale. Today we'll be speaking with Laureano. Is so passionate about food, she says that you would have to chop her hands and legs off to stop her from cooking. She loves her country, the Philippines, and its culture and beauty, but hates the traffic and laziness. Isi's sense of humor is playful, which sometimes you'll see when she's exploring the local markets. Isi loves life and her son, who is her main driver in life. And if Isi could feed everyone who needs a meal, she would. Welcome, Isi.
Thank you for that, Eric and Ashi.
Isi, it's such a pleasure to speak with you. I remember meeting you, a few years ago when I came to the Philippines to acquire a host for Traveling Spoon. And I remember coming to your home, and one of my favorite parts of being there was you taking me to the garden and us collecting calamansi limes for the food that we made. And it was so much fun. It was just such a delicious citrus fruit that I'd never had the opportunity to try before. And we cooked all these amazing dishes, so many of which I never saw in restaurant menus. I still remember things like the ensaladang paco, which was, ferns that you had got from the farmer's market that day, and a squash stew. And it was just so delicious and wonderful to be introduced to so many unique dishes in Manila. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got into food and what drove this desire to really showcase Filipino food?
Well, I really started cooking at home where everybody really started from. And I grew up with my grandparents in our hometown, which is called Malabon. Malabon is in the northern part of Metro Manila, and pretty much all my life I spend my days with them. And both my grandparents were our cooks. Of course, the pretty much the whole family and even my relatives are foodies. My grandfather's eldest sister has still built this bake shop and restaurant in our hometown, and it's still up and running, and it's been there since the 50s. And my aunt is the one who's running the show over there now. So we pretty much ate good food when we were growing up because of them.
Food's been in the blood for a long time, huh?
Yes, pretty much.
And what was your first food-related business?
My first ever business was really getting food orders from family and friends. And then I started Chili Asylum and my other company, which is called Hainan Ketchups. So these two pretty much concentrated on making spicy condiments. And I've been selling these things for the past, I don't know, let's see, almost 8 years now, because I'm just pretty much this person who handled so many things way back then. I started in when I graduated from college. I wanted to experience how it's working out there in a corporate world. So I started in a call center, and then I transferred being a freelance photographer and food stylist. And then from there, I got into the music scene here, and I manage some artists in the music business, and I still do the photography at the same time. That's when I decided, you know what, I'm gonna put up my own food business because I know I can cook because of my grandparents, and I'm also culinary trained after college. So many kinds of work in other fields, I decided to go back to school, and I went to the International School for Culinary Arts here. And then after that, I got my son. And then that's when I decided to do my own food business. And then that's when I landed Traveling Spoon as well. And then from then, I've been juggling my food businesses and then Traveling Spoon. And then I recently land a private chef job that's kind of like a part-time job. So I'm just juggling three things all at the same time, but everything is just all about food, which I really love.
That's great to hear. And tell me a little bit about why you chose to offer the spicier condiments, because when I at least was in the Philippines, I didn't see too many chilies or spices around. So it's great that you're doing it. But what made you get into, starting Chili Asylum and the spicy ketchups?
Yeah, well, when I started the Chili Asylum business, I started selling chili con carne, but I made different kinds of chili con carne, not just beef, but I also did chicken, and then I also made a vegetarian version. I just started being a kiosk in all these food bazaars and just selling it with nachos or on top of a rice, like a rice meal, because we love rice here in the Philippines. I didn't want to go become like a Mexican restaurant or like a Mexican store, but I really love Mexican food and I love spicy food. So that's when I really started. And then I thought about condiments because when I was doing the nachos, I was just thinking of making pickled chilies and some hot sauces and just pretty much using whatever we have around here. That's when I decided, oh, it's more feasible for me to do the bottled products and stop the food orders and just concentrated on the bottled products because when I started that, there's not much people who are doing that yet. After 6 years of just doing these things, the chili community started. Everyone started doing their own hot sauce and everyone wanted to just because it's trending, it became like a trend here and then the chili festival has been happening every year for the past 6 years. I think they're going to be doing again something like that this year, but because of what's going on here, I don't know if that's going to push through this year.
So certainly
Yeah.
sounds like you spiced up the industry.
Pretty much, I guess so.
Before the show today, I was reading about you and you were saying how everything just fell into place and I'm not sure it was as simple as that because you're a self-made woman and you've been doing this for 6 years and you clearly have thought about it and you've got a business model and you've got the
Mhm.
family background, a family of foodies that you were raised in, but it could not have been as easy as everything falling into place, was it?
No, it wasn't being just having all these projects and jobs and the journey that I had with this because first of all my family isn't in the food business. My parents have put up a family business which is on the medical field. They're orthopedics. So of course when we were kids me and my brother were kind of honed to be part of the family business. And I remember my mom was even telling me not to even go to college anymore and just work for her. And it was kind of hard for me at first because my mom didn't really supported what I'm doing. She didn't like that I actually am going back to school and doing culinary again, studying again. And then after that, I gave birth to my son. And of course, that kind of gave her some disappointment. But then again, after all these years, she can't do anything about it. She saw that this is really what I wanted to do. And this is the only thing that I can really do to provide for my son and to also help them.
Tell us a little bit more about your businesses. You said they're bottled sauces, and I'm a huge fan of chili, so I certainly am in alignment with you there. But
Yeah.
do you distribute to restaurants or hotels, or do you sell on your own, or what's your distribution? Can you explain a little bit more about your business?
It kind of grew from just selling online, and then I sold in some food bazaars. I joined a lot of that during my first few years when I was doing this. And then I decided that's when people discovered me when I started posting it online. And then a lot of people were into the food bazaars. They really go to the weekend market. So that's how I kind of become popular. And then that's when I started meeting all these people who have these local stores. I'm not really in the big groceries because I wanted to just kind of be a novelty item. I didn't want to deal with the big companies. I just distributed my products in local stores that are really concentrated on selling locally produce and homemade products. I am very passionate about where I get my ingredients. So I've been working with a lot of farmers and my friends who have farms, also help them from just getting their produce and making something out of it. That has been the main objective of my company. I wanted to be all natural. I didn't want to do preservatives. My natural preservatives for my condiments are sugar, salt, and the vinegars that I get around here. I am kind of purist with what I use. So that's when I really started to be different from the rest of the other people who are doing the chili condiments. That's when I started to separate the ketchup, because the ketchup is like another line of condiments, because I mainly use local fruits that we have here and some local vegetables and making them into an all natural ketchup, which is my favorite condiment. That's why I made my own.
Issy, while you were starting your business, did you get help from someone? Were there business incubators in the Philippines that you were associated with, or did you do this all on your own?
I did this on my own. I started it with my savings from all the jobs that I experienced, that I got some salary and savings from. So that's really how I started. I am just doing still everything here in my house. I don't, this is pretty much my commissary kitchen for everything that I do. I do have a storage, which is my parents' other house. That's where I put all my storage, my ref and my freezer for all my ingredients and my products. I don't normally stock a lot because I pretty much make whatever is the order of the store that I supply to, and then just bring it over there, and everything is just always freshly made, and I'm not really worrying or worried about the expiration date because every time the place orders, it's freshly made. I do get some support from some government agencies like Department of Agriculture and the Department of Science and Technology, and of course the trade and industry. They pretty much help us small businesses, but I'm not really very dependent on them. So I'm a very independent company and just did it on my own.
That's great to hear, Issy. And in terms of how were you able to spread the word, it sounds like you've had quite a bit of media presence. I know just for Traveling Spoon, there were quite a few bloggers and journalists who wrote about you, including in the Chicago Tribune, because they just had such an amazing time learning about the food of the Philippines with you and feeling like they really made a connection because you have, you're just one of those very authentic people that when people meet, they feel so comfortable talking to, and you're so passionate about food. So how did that happen for some of these other businesses? How were you able to spread the word through media and PR?
It really started because of Chili Asylum and Hainan ketchups. When I started that home-based business, I got so many reviews and feedback that my products were very good and they really like it. So that kind of spread out in the culinary scene. And then I got all these write ups and articles about my products and what I do. And then I worked with this food magazine before. I was their food stylist and also their recipe developer back then. That magazine isn't on print anymore, but they're online now. For the past years before it closed down their print, I've been doing a lot of recipes for them and food styling for them. So that kind of connected me to all these other people in the industry. I have been aware and got sincere support from these people, and they're still buying my products until today, and it's been part of their diet, it's been part of their homes. That has been my main goal for Chili Asylum and Hainan Ketchup. And also because this is homemade and all the ingredients that I use are from here, that is, I think it's kind of important for them now. I think it's becoming a trend here that they want to use something that's being produced locally.
You were saying that you teach Filipino cuisine to some of the guests that you host. And Filipino cuisine is one that I can't say I'm that familiar with. I think a lot of people have
Mhm.
heard of Malaysian or Vietnamese or Thai, Chinese, of course. But what's your favorite Filipino cuisine item to cook?
I really love to cook anything with coconut milk. That has been part of my menu ever since I started teaching Filipino cuisine to my guests. I really love to share with them what we have from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, which is the entire Philippines. It's not just adobo, which is the most famous dish of the Philippines, that it's being cooked everywhere now. Of course, I teach that, but I also give them the history and our own family recipe and our take on making all these kinds of adobo. A lot of the articles that you would see or the recipes that you would see for adobo is chicken and pork. But I grew up in a fishing town. My hometown, Malabon, is actually a fishing village. So we eat mostly seafood. Most of my guests are surprised that we actually adobo squid. It kind of a treat for them to know this story because my grandmother loves to make that. And then I add coconut milk to that, and it's totally a different dish already. I think Filipino cuisine is very versatile. There's no right or wrong in the recipes or the way you do it because there's so many kinds of versions of adobo. If you go around the Philippines or just by going to a different family, they have their own take of adobo or their coconut milk based dishes. I think that's what makes Filipino cuisine unique and not as on the level yet of the Chinese cuisine or Japanese cuisine because our cuisine is just so vast. When you go to here where I stay now is the Luzon Island, which is the biggest island here in the Philippines. If you go up in the mountains, they eat a lot of vegetables there and pork. We're like pork country here in Luzon. And then once you go to the Visayas, it's all seafood and have all these other ingredients that they use for making the same actual dishes that we make here in Luzon, but they also make it in Visayas, but they just differ in the ingredients. And then once you go down in Mindanao, the Mindanaoan cuisine is so wide. It reminds me of Indonesian and Malaysian cuisine. They have a lot of course, beef dishes because the Muslim communities over there, they use a lot of coconut milk and a lot of spicy dishes. And I love Mindanaoan cuisine, and you won't just get that Filipino restaurant here in the city. You really have to go all the way there to experience these types of wonderful cuisine that we have here in the Philippines.
Join us around the 15th of every month for Food Travel Talk TV, our new live online talk show dedicated to the food and beverage travel trade. Every month, we invite thought leaders, opinion makers, and trendsetters to discuss important topics for the benefit of our industry. The show is designed to inspire us with ways to help each other do business better. You can peruse upcoming shows and register in the event calendar on our website. So you're a food traveler in your own country then?
Yes, pretty. Yeah. I love to explore my country. There are so many ingredients that we don't have here in Luzon that they have over there in Mindanao. They grow all these other ingredients there that we can't even grow it over here. And not a lot of people are aware of these things. And that's really what we want to share, especially to my guests who are first timers, who don't really know anything about our food. And this is really my platform where I can showcase them that it's not just all about adobo. you know, there's other dishes that I like to show them from
And,
all over the Philippines.
and noodles too. You're a big noodle lover, I understand.
Yes, I am. Yeah, this that has been like part of our diet also here. That's really the Chinese influence here in the Philippines. They were the ones who brought that over here. And then of course, us Filipinos, we made so many kinds of noodle dishes from what we got influence from them.
Isi, you've been in the industry, in the food industry now for a while. Can you
Mhm.
describe a few concerns that you have, that you see in the industry? I remember seeing a post on Facebook you had put up where you showed this beautiful image of food being delivered in these, I think they were banana leaf containers. They were
Oh
beautifully
yeah.
wrapped, these wonderful packages. And it got me thinking, it's nuts that we use so much plastic in food delivery, and why can't we go back to, using those biodegradable, compostable packages? So tell me a little bit more about, what are the concerns in the industry that really bother you?
Since I've been really independent with my company, I don't really have a lot of support that I would normally expect when I go to other countries and I meet all these in their culinary scene. They seem to have this community sense within them. Here it's really like a competition. I think I'm one of those people who don't really like to compete. I just do what I have to do. If somebody copies my products, I won't really care. Over here, it's just really the competition is the number one concern that I have in the industry. Another would be finding consistent supply of what I need, or the logistics of having all these ingredients coming from the other provinces. We can't really just get them easily, so I just pretty much make do whatever is available in the market or from the farms of my friends. Of course, the food waste is a major concern here. Ever since the culinary scene got so popular here, a lot of people just started opening up all these food hubs, like food park, and then it didn't really work that other people were expecting it to work in some way, but it just didn't. Food carts or those food trucks, a lot of people were starting to do that as well, but it didn't really work also. I think Filipinos got this attitude towards food. They don't have a loyalty sense. They won't fall in line here. They would fall in line if you just opened up. If you're a new restaurant, for example, like when Shake Shack opened here, everybody for a few days they really lined up for it, but just after a month, oh, because they already ate there, they won't really go back anymore. If you know what I mean. I don't know if you get what I mean, but I think I don't see that kind of loyalty over here. They would want to have a new restaurant or a new dish to eat or to experience. I am glad that I'm actually doing all my businesses at home and I can make a new or seasonal product for my guests. I could always change my Filipino menu because I would want to share with them and just use whatever we have in the market or whatever we have here right now. The number one concern that I have is the food waste, and I like that I know already the number of my guests and I don't need to buy so much ingredients. Of course, right now, this coronavirus is really affecting us all. This is the concern of the many. It really hit the industry. I'm also very concerned about my businesses. Of course, I can't just lay around here and do nothing. So I'm kind of struggling on what I'm going to be doing next. Right now, I'm accepting food orders. I'm helping the frontliners by donating food packs for the hospitals. Let's see in the next weeks what else I'm going to be doing, but I'm sure it's just going to be all about food.
That must be hard to try and do what you do when there is no sense of support from the community. I mean, I know that some business communities around the world do have that kind of outlook that it's each person for themselves. And in other places, like in Portland,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm from, it was much different, where there was more of a feeling of camaraderie and we're all in this together and we'll help each other to survive. And I don't know, it just sounds like it's a hard thing to try and do when you're all in this alone by yourself. Nevertheless, you've triumphed, you've survived.
You just do what you have to do. As long as you're not hurting anybody or exploiting anyone here or like a community, having a sustainable business here is really something that you can actually look up to. Food is essential for everybody. It's still the number one business here. Whatever it is that I'm doing right now is what I really want to do. I'm very happy with serving and cooking and just sharing what I know from Filipino cuisine and from all my clients that I built from Chili Asylum and the ketchup. I am just glad that I get all these good feedbacks. I am proud to say I haven't had a bad feedback yet from my guests and also from my customers. And they're really repeat clients that I am quite proud of for the past years that I've been doing this.
EC, looking back, if you could give yourself a single piece of advice, what would you say?
I would tell myself to read more because I think I haven't really read all my books. Of course, I love to travel. So if I would travel more, if I had more time and I have more chance to do that, I would. I really love to explore other cultures and discover all these other ingredients and taste different dishes all over the world. I would pretty much would love to do that after this lockdown here in the Philippines. Of course, I would tell myself to love yourself more. Like, of course, don't forget yourself, even if you're serving all these and sharing and just helping other people. You also need to love yourself along the way. Of course, don't forget your struggles and your root ever since, and don't be afraid of the world. I have a fear of not being able to be successful. A lot of people think that success is just all about having so much money, but that's not me. That's not how I think. Success means whatever it is. If you're happy with what you're doing right now and if this is really your passion, I think that's enough for you to say that you're successful in life.
That's wonderful. It sounds like you would like to read more, but it sounds like you already have. Do you have any quotes that you love from books that you've read or people that you follow?
I've been a fan of Anthony Bourdain most of my life. When I went to culinary school, that's when I discovered his books. I really like It's one of his writings in his cookbook. It's one of his first books where he worked in the Lehal cookbook. I like the quote where he said, "You must ultimately respect your ingredients, however lowly they might be, just as you must respect your guests, however witless and unappreciative they might be, because ultimately you are cooking for yourself." That has been my motivation because I can do what I want and this is what I want. And I'm just happy to be cooking for everybody here.
Anthony Bourdain was talking about guests that you might be cooking for, but what drives you crazy in business? Not just the guests that you serve and anything having to do with business. What drives you crazy?
In a bad way.
Yeah, like what would be a
um,
pet peeve?
I really don't like when people talk about other people. That's really not my nature. A lot of people have more time judging everyone else than getting to know them first.
Yeah.
That's really one of my pet peeves. And of course, when they talk bad about your business, which isn't even true, that's really not a nice thing to say, or it's just kind of petty and pathetic for me. Of course, people who are fake, they would say it's good, but then again, they would spread out to other people that it's not.
Yeah, it's hard when people say one thing but act in a different way, isn't it? Mixed messages.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I really don't like that. It's not easy to meet really sincere people nowadays. You know, you try to see the positive side of everybody, and then when you get to know them, you'll eventually see who they really are and if they're really sincere about themselves and about their connection with you.
Do you have a current favorite book, EC?
Yes, I've been into fermentation lately. Well, for most of my life, I'm really interested in it. That's really how Chili Asylum and Hainan ketchup came about because my grandmother loves to ferment things and pickle things when I was growing up. The Art of Fermentation by Sander Katz is kind of like my Bible. I've been reading it almost every day. I mean, I've read the whole book, but I still check on it when I need information about. I love my books. I can't get rid of them if I declutter my home. So I have all these fermentation books here, but that's really one of my favorites now. And I also follow him on Instagram.
It's interesting that you mention fermentation because that was one of the things that I found really surprising about the Philippines. You know, when you think about countries that ferment a lot of food, South Korea comes to mind first. But when I was in the Philippines, I was so impressed by the different types of vinegars that you could find. And I had no idea that Filipinos use so many different types of vinegars, or that was just such a national interest in some ways. Do you know where that came from?
That's really one of the first products that they came out here in the Philippines. Our vinegars are really part of our diets ever since. A lot of teachings before that they thought adobo was actually derived from Spain, but it's not. It's really a local native dish of the Philippines because we were already preserving our food with vinegar. We were preserving our rice. We're fermenting it. We've made rice wine with it. We still do. We also ferment rice as a condiment, and that's another different type of fermentation. We pickle almost everything here from green papayas to our mangoes to our pineapples until we just became like a vast product line. Of course, coconut and sugarcane were the cash crops here in the Philippines. That's where the vinegar industry started. And of course, coconut and sugarcane is easier to make, to ferment than compared to making rice wine. That's actually one of my questions and curiosity are going there lately because I was thinking why we're not doing rice vinegar here compared to the Japanese people. Their vinegar there is all rice, but here our most popular is the coconut and the sugar cane. And when I found out why we're not doing that, is because it's just more work doing the rice vinegar compared to fermenting coconut and sugarcane.
Sounds like you've traveled a lot around Southeast Asia and Europe. Where are you planning to travel to next?
I was supposed to go to Bali because there is Ubud Food Festival. It was supposed to happen this month, but unfortunately it moved to another date. So I'll probably go to Bali still this year. And then I also want to go back to Japan. I have a chef friend who's been inviting me to explore Japan in a different way. I love Japan. Maybe Korea. I haven't been to Korea yet, so I would really like to go there.
Do you have a favorite food travel memory?
Well, back in 2017, it was my first time to go to Europe and explore Europe for 2 months. I really love Belgium among all the places that I've been to, but of course Spain, because when I went to Spain, it just blew my mind that this is like our culture over here in the Philippines. It was interesting to see this country who conquered us for 400 years, seeing and experiencing their culture in a different way was also a highlight.
Well, Isi, it has been really interesting chatting with you. The Philippines is a country that I just didn't really know that much about. And to hear you talk about chilies and coconut milk and noodles, I wish I could book a plane ticket right now because I'm there. I mean, you've just mentioned some of my favorite things. So I hope I get a chance to visit soon and experience your cooking in your home as maybe a traveling spoon guest.
Thank you, Izzy. We are excited to have you showcase some of the provincial foods of the Philippines, especially now as whenever travel gets back to some semblance of normalcy, what the industry is predicting is more domestic travel. So it'd be great for you to continue to showcase what's wonderful and unique about all of the ingredients and foods of the Philippines.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Ashley and Eric. I really enjoyed talking to you guys.
Thanks, Isi. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye. Thanks for listening today. The Eat Well, Travel Better podcast is brought to you by the World Food Travel Association, the world's leading authority on food and beverage tourism. Our mission is to preserve and promote culinary cultures through hospitality and travel. By doing so, we empower local communities and entrepreneurs with the knowledge and tools needed to reach new food lovers and gain a competitive edge. Founded in 2003, now each year we shepherd a community of 200,000 professionals in more than 100 countries. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and you can learn more about us, subscribe to our newsletter, and join our family at worldfoodtravel.org. Until next time, eat well and travel better.